So this is going to be like the masterpiece theater of title company closing attorney strategies. And this video series, by the way, is intended not only for consumers of real estate, so buyers and sellers, but also their real estate agents and loan officers, people on their team, their closing team. And it's just based upon 30 plus years of experience of seeing what are the recurring issues in real estate? What are the things that we see over and over again? Where I always stop and think, this is something that we talked about. We probably covered it in our introductory correspondence. Our paralegal probably made a note of it in an email or two or three, and yet somehow something has still been lost in translation, and it's impacted the closing in a negative way. And so, for what it's worth, we're going to cover a few what I would consider to be hot button issues, and hopefully some of this will sort of trickle through, and somebody who's buying or selling real estate will see one of these videos and they'll say, I remember I heard the attorney talking about that. So the first one that I want to lead with is cash to close. And these videos, by the way, may not be as succinct as some of our other videos, but if you can hang in there, it may not be the normal soundbite sort of, the soundbite template, but I think that it's definitely going to be worth digging in and watching the video in its entirety. So the first topic is cash to close. So just to break it down, if you are purchasing real estate, certainly in New England, and you are bringing money to closing, unless it's a very small amount of money, like $100 or $200, and that sometimes is the case, you are going to have to bring your cash to closing in the form of a certified check or a wire transfer. Now, what do we see? We still see people showing up at closing that are bringing $85,000 to closing, and they reach out with their personal checkbook. They pull their personal checkbook either out of their purse or their breast pocket. You are not going to be able to write a personal check for $85,000 or even $8,500 at your real estate closing. And we're talking about that in our correspondence, and we're including that in our email. And yet there are still buyers that show up to closing with a personal check, and everybody feels badly. And the reasons are varied. Sometimes they weren't getting the emails. Some buyers have admitted that they may not have read the emails carefully enough, or they didn't read our letter carefully enough. And then there are buyers that will say, I saw that certified check, but I really didn't know what that meant. So it's definitely worth talking about, because if you are a buyer of real estate and you show up to a real estate closing and you have sellers in that room that are expecting to get their money at that time and go straight to the bank and deposit it, and you pull out a personal check, planning to write a personal check for $100,000 or even $10,000, your closing is going to be at least on pause until that gets sorted out. So again, if you're bringing money to closing beyond some small, insignificant amount, you're going to need to go to your bank and tell the person at the bank, I need a certified check, either made payable to the title company or law firm, or made payable to yourself, and then you can sign it over to us at closing, or you can have it made payable to the law firm doing the closing or you. And then either party can be the recipient of that check. I've seen people walk into closings making their certified check payable to the real estate agent. That's a problem. Now you're going to have to go back to the bank and get a new check. It's not made payable to the agent. I've seen people have their certified check made payable to the mortgage company that they were going with. So back in the day, I remember somebody coming in and a closing that we were handling for Wells Fargo, and they made their cash to closing check payable to Wells Fargo Mortgage. Now what? You need to go back to your bank, physically hand them that check. They'll cancel it in their system, and they'll hand you a new check made payable to the attorney or title company. Traps for the unwary. Okay, again, we're still talking about cash to close. This is like the lightning round. We're trying to squeeze it all in. Who do you bank with? Hopefully you bank with somebody local. I've seen people buying real estate in New England. Their banking relationships are with banks and credit unions. They established those relationships with when they lived in California, when they lived in Ohio. And then the question becomes, on the day of the closing or the day before the closing, wait, how am I going to get a certified check payable to the title company drawn on my bank account at that credit union in Ohio or that credit union in California? How am I going to do that? And again, this is not for a lack of imparting information. Our letters are replete with references. You'll need certified checks for closing or a wire transfer from your bank. Arrangements should be made in advance. If you have any questions, please call. So we're really trying to almost over alert and over inform people, but it still gets lost in translation. Even recently, we had a closing where the borrower, very educated, very sophisticated, their plan was to initiate the wire transfer essentially at the closing or from the closing. This is not going to be acceptable under most circumstances because we really should be funded on the day of closing, which means you should either be handing us a certified check on the day of closing, or you should have sent the wire already so that it hits at least the day before the closing. Now, so long as we're talking about wires, make sure that you take every precaution to ensure that you are not the victim of wire fraud. So you'll need to get those wiring instructions from us securely, and then you'll need to confirm them with us verbally. If you receive a stray email with a sense of urgency telling you that it's imperative that you send your wire today and that we've changed our account or something like that, that's fraud. Call our title company right away so we can get that straightened out. So these are the things to consider. Who do you bank with? Are you going to be able to call that bank or credit union, which is located in Ohio or California or Nevada? Are you going to be able to get a certified check from them if you're not there? What about wire transfers? I'm familiar with at least one credit union in Ohio that will not initiate a wire transfer out of a member's account unless the member physically walks into the credit union and signs a document. Well, if you're buying a property in New Hampshire, that's going to be hard unless you plan on flying back to Ohio to fill out that form. And by the way, I can recall at least one instance where a client did have to physically board a plane and fly to Michigan to make an arrangement to get her funds for closing, because this is something that was not considered beforehand. So again, no matter how much we talk about it, and I could put it on the side of a blimp and fly that blimp around this area 24 hours a day, and there's still going to be the occasional borrower that's going to walk into a closing room to buy real estate, and they're going to have their personal checkbook with them. We'll never eliminate that altogether, but we certainly can cut down on it, and hopefully this video goes a small way in that direction. So again, if you are bringing cash to closing, and most people that buy real estate are, and it's more than $100 or $35 or $135, I think our cutoff is like $2,500. If you're bringing that or more to closing, you're going to need a certified check made payable to the attorney or the title company, or you're going to need to do a wire transfer. And that wire transfer should be done before the day of closing. I hope this helps.